So, how to carry out an internal audit? The first step is you have to define your audit. Your first job as an auditor will be to define the scope of your audit. That means you need to write down a list of all your assets. Yes, it is important to actually write down. Assets include obvious things like computer equipment and sensitive company and customer data, but it also includes things without which the business would require time or money to fix important internal documentation. Once you have a lengthy list of assets, you need to define your security perimeter, right? You are not going to circumvent the entire scope again and again, so you need to define your perimeter. A security perimeter segments your assets into two buckets: things you will audit and things you won't audit. So it is as we've discussed in the critical things that you first need to understand your context. Now that skill applies here. You first need to know what things you should audit and which things you should avoid. So you have to choose your most valuable assets, build a security perimeter around them, and put 100% of your focus to those assets. The next step is you have to define your threats. So take your list of valuable assets and write down a corresponding list of potential threats to those assets. For example, if you're consuming database, so what can be a possible threat? SQL injection, right? This can range from poor employee passwords protecting sensitive company or customer to denial of service attacks, and can even include physical breaches or damages caused by natural disasters. Essentially, any potential threat should be considered as long as the threat can legitimately cost your business a significant amount of money. So let us have a look at common threats you should think about during this step. First is negligent employees. Your employees are your first line of defense. How well they are trained to notice suspicious activity and to follow security protocols laid out by your team. Are they reusing personal passwords to protect sensitive company accounts? So you have to ask all these questions while you're performing your defining threats. Then is phishing attacks. We have seen the statistics where 70% of the malwares or any attacks which are carried out are due to social engineering attacks. And phishing is a major type of social engineering attack. Over 75% of phishing attacks are financially motivated. Then poor passwords behavior. Leveraged in 81% of hacking related breaches, weak or stolen passwords are the number one method used by perpetrators. So sometimes employees tend to write down passwords on their desks. So anyways, eavesdropper can generally go and have a look around. He can dumpster dive into the dustbins and look for passwords. So you have to train your employees not to keep those passwords on the outside. So you have to remember them. The malicious insiders. It's important to take into account that it is possible that there is someone within your own business. See, every threat is occupied is sidelined with an financial gain. So even if there are some employees who can act as internal threats to your organizations, you need to be very sure. You need to be cautious about such employees. Then denial of service attacks. Then bring your own device. It's important to ask whether the organization allows people to bring their own device. If so, the attack surface for perpetrators is larger and weaker. Any device that has access to your systems need to be accounted for even it's not owned by your business. Then malwares and physical or natural disasters which we have discussed. The third step is to assess current performance. Now that you have a list of threats, you need to be candid about your company's ability to defend against them. At this point, you are evaluating the performance of existing security structures, which means you are essentially evaluating the performance of yourself, your team, or your department. This is one area where an external audit can be provided with great benefit because it ensures that no internal biases are affecting the outcome of the audit. It is also critical to the legitimacy and efficacy of your internal security audit to try and block out any emotion or bias you have towards evaluating and assessing your performance to date. Maybe your team is particularly good at monitoring your network and detecting threats, but your employees are up to date on the latest method used by hackers to gain access to your systems. Are your employees are aware of all the latest technology that is being deployed in the market to hack servers. So you also have to consider that possibility. As a first line of defense, perhaps you should weigh threats against your employees more heavily than threats related to the network detection. If threats your employees are the major access to your systems. The fourth step is prioritize, which is risk scoring. This may be the most important job you have done as an auditor. Like, how do you prioritize what is important? Take your list of threats and weigh the potential damage of a threat occurrence versus the chances that it actually can occur. For example, a natural disaster can't obviate the business, but if your assets exist in a place that has never been hit with a natural catastrophe, the risk score should be lowered accordingly. So don't forget to include the results of the current security performance assessment when scoring relevant threats. During threat assessment, it is important to take a step back and look at additional factors such as history of organization, current cybersecurity trends, then industry level trends and regulational compliance. And the final one, which is important, is formulate security solutions. The final step of any internal security audit is straightforward. Take your prioritized list of threats, write it down your corresponding list of security improvements or best practices to negate them or eliminate them. This list is now your personal to-do list for the coming weeks and months. Yes, audits do not generally take place in a day or in a week. They are a continuing process. So here are a list of common security solutions for you to think about during this step. Employee education awareness, whether your employees are aware about the security trends, we have just discussed it. Then email protection. Phishing attacks are increasingly popular nowadays and they are increasingly becoming more difficult to identify. Once clicked, a phishing email gives an attacker a number of options to gain access to data via software installation. Spam filters help, but identifying emails as internal or external to your networks is also highly valuable. Then password safety and access management. Passwords are tricky because they need to be complex and unique to each account. Humans simply aren't wired to remember tens or hundreds of thousands of passwords, and thus they tend to either reuse them or store them in unprotected words, notepads, or they just post it on their desk. It's always, it's always easier to just look password in front of you and then type, right? So you need to educate your employees about password management. Then data backup. It's stunning how often companies forget this simple step. I'm always I do not have a kind of attraction towards people who don't back up their data regularly, because data is very important these days, and being a security engineer, I value my data. So it's always very important that you keep your data backed up every time. To be honest with you guys, I back up my data each and every week to be pretty very safe. Then software updates. Keeping everyone on your network on the latest software is invaluable towards securing your access points. You can enforce software updates manually, or you can use a software like Duo to keep your sensitive accounts locked to employees whose software isn't up to date. So in this way, security audit, internal security audit is to be performed. Now let's move on to next, which is very simple, external audit. So as we have discussed, the audit purpose, external audit is audit performed by a third party on your organization because you don't have a valid security team, or you just don't want to perform an internal audit. So the external auditor uses a top-down approach to audit of IFCR to select the controls to test. A company's overall IT platform includes systems related data that not only address financial reporting needs but also operational and compliance needs. So the process performed is same, but in case of external audits, an external auditor visits an organization, and they perform. But the major advantage of external audit over internal audit is unbiasing, as we have discussed. So mostly large companies like Amazon, Google, they hire external auditors to audit their security system, which makes it even more easier to find out flaws in their security system. So till now we have seen what is audit, and I hope you have understood why audits are important, how is a particular audit carried out. So please share your experience through ratings, as your ratings are very valuable to us. We can we can alternatively manage our syllabus due to our students enrollments and the reviews. So in the next lecture you will see what is frameworks used in security industry. So all the best for